In this video, I'm going to talk about installing IBM's DB2 on a Windows Server system. So before we get going, a couple of things. I would recommend, if you are doing this in an environment that is going to have Active Directory, get the system joined to that domain already. So as we can see here, I've already joined the Windows Server into that Active Directory domain. A couple other prerequisites. When I do the install, the IBM documentation does say be a local administrator. There are some ways to do it differently, and like you can use an Active Directory account. I kind of prefer to do it this way. It just keeps it a little simple. So I did a who am I in the command prompt earlier, and it pointed out that I am the local administrator. I also need IBM's GSKit installed, so I did a check, and it is installed and in the path, so we're at version 8.0.55.31. And lastly, I'm going to be installing this onto the D drive of this system. Best practices is going to vary from organization to organization. Maybe it's not needed to have a separate drive if you're in a virtualized environment, but I still find some organizations want to have a completely separate drive to either install all their software on or just have it for their data drive. Regardless, DB2 has a requirement. It needs 8.3 enabled. So I did this in another video, but I'm just confirming that on the D drive where I'm installing, it is actually enabled. So now that we've got those prerequisites out of the way, we can go ahead with the installation. All right, so one of the first things I'm going to do is actually open up the local users, edit local users and groups, and we're going to add in a user called DB2. And we're going to make sure that the password never expires. The user can change it, so that's fine. And we'll set that to my super secret password here for my lab. And then we're going to click create. Okay. Now the other thing I need to do is I need to add this to the local administrators group. Now again, there's different ways to do this. I'm just showing you one way. You do not necessarily have to use a local system, local user. You can use an Active Directory user for this, but I'm just going through doing this as a local user. All right, so now that that's done, we can go onto our C drive and we can run this this zip here. It's a self-extracting zip file, but this will kick off the DB2 setup. And it does take a bit of time because it's extracting itself and then running the setup. So give it a moment. As long as you see, there we go. It's finally opened up. As long as you see the little spinning circle, you're in good shape there. And yeah, you can just tell it unzip wherever unless you have a specific requirement to put it somewhere else. And since this is a self-extracting zip file, you can actually rename it from .exe to .zip and then just unzip it normally with Windows as well. Always different ways of doing things. All right, so we will close that. Okay, so it looks like that's actually not going to start on its own. My bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into that temporary folder where it extracted everything, go into the universal directory and run setup ourselves. All right, so once we get to this page, we just click on install a product and we're going to scroll down and say install new. And just fair warning, depending on your system's specs, it may take a bit of time. But eventually we do get this welcome screen coming up. And the wizard is going. So we can click on next. We'll accept the terms after reading them thoroughly. And okay, so now we have a couple of different options. In this case, I'm going to go through a custom install. It allows a little bit more control over what's going on here. Now, there's 3 install options here. What you can do is you can just go and select this one, and this is what we're going to do, which is a straightforward installation on this computer. We can also say, I'd like to just save my responses and not do anything else. It won't install the software. Or we can do both. We can install the software and save the responses. And actually, you know what? Why don't we do that? We're going to do the end result as far as installing the software of these two is pretty much identical, except you get a response file. What is a response file? It's essentially a configuration file, a text-based configuration file that allows you to then run the installer in silent mode without having to constantly supply the same answers all over and over again. And it also lets you customize it. So if you have to do a lot of these deployments, or if you want a quick way to be able to recover the deployment or do it over and over again, the exact same deployment, the response file is a good way to go. So I'll show you what that looks like at the end of this video. So now we click on Next. We're going to keep all the defaults here, and with the exception of we are going to tell it to install on the D drive, and then we'll click Next. I'm just going to keep this as English only, but if you want, there's a number of different languages that are supported by DB2. We're just going to keep the DB2 copy name as DB2 copy 1. That's the default, so leave it as that. And as far as the program data, I'm just going to switch that to D. Now, this is for the documentation. We're just going to leave it as the IBM website. We don't have an intranet server. This next part asks who is going to be the DB2 admin. So we're going to leave it as DB2 admin. That's the default. It's detected that. And this is a local user account, so we're not going to select a domain. If you do, it will give you the option of selecting the domain that the system belongs to. We're going to use that same account for all the remaining services as well. We're going to create the default DB2 instance. And we're going to use a single partition here. And we're going to just accept the default for that. I don't really want any notifications since this is a lab environment, so I'm just going to turn that off. But if you do want notifications, you can set up an SMTP server to get those. We're going to enable operating system security. So what that means on Windows is that anybody belonging to this DB2 admins group will be a DB2 administrator. Same goes for the DB2 users. They'll be just a regular user. These are both local groups as well. All right, and it's going to ask us to review those settings. So those all look good, and we're going to click Finish. So things are progressing. I can see that mentioning that DB2 is now configured. I actually haven't seen this particular error message pop up. I'm not sure why that's popping up. I've probably done 50 DB2 installs in the last few months here, just getting used to the product and whatnot. And yeah, in all my time, that's never come up. And it's showing us a message that DB2 is now configured to run on startup. All right, so it has finished copying the files. Setup is complete. It gives us a little information about the ports, optional steps for validating. So it doesn't look like there was anything fatal in that installation. All right, so the next thing that will generally pop up is this DB2 first steps. At this point, everything's installed. You don't have to do anything. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to create a sample database. And this will allow us to create a sample database on the D drive. It's only 50 meg. And it'll allow us to test connectivity to the database. Generally takes a minute to finish that. And the sample database has been created. So we'll click OK, close and then OK. And now we want to restart the system. This will make sure that DB2 is coming up, and we'll run through all the validation. Now, when we log in this time, we're going to say other user. We're going to give the host name of the system, and then backslash, and then DB2 admin. So that's the DB2 admin local user. Okay, now that we're logged in, we're going to open up a command prompt. Pin that to the taskbar just so I can get to it quicker. And we're going to run the DB2 validation. So that's generally d:\/ program files /IBM /SQLlib /bin /db2 val. Now this is going to take a few minutes to run, but provided everything is working fine, we should just see about 3 or 4 messages, each ending with an I. If you see something with a W, that's a warning. If you see something with an E, that's an error. That's, it seems to generally be how IBM does things. Okay, that has completed, and as we can see, there's nothing but informational messages. And it says DB2 command completed successfully. So we have now validated that everything is looking good. So I'm going to stop here because there's lots more steps. I'll do that in another video. Thanks for watching.